saaka halkan waxaan noo dhibay barnaamij aad iyo aad u qiimo badan furitaankiisa barnaamijkaas oo ah geedka la yiraahdo Moringa oleifera oo geedka lagu tilmaamo inuu geedka mucjisada yahay ama geedka nolosha marka la eego waxtarkiisa oo aad u tiro badan oo xidid ilaa guniya baarmeen maqli jirnay xidid ilaa iyo ubax iyo caleen iyo jirif iyo nooc walba loo isticmaalayo siidkiisa mid walba wax gooniya taro barnaamij ay hogaaminayso professor Aisha oo ka timi Toronto jaamacadda Toronto ka socota oo doonaysa inay waxtarkiisa iyo halkan u soo raraan marka horeba uu inoo baxay isagoo maartay aan aad u badnayn oo geedka yimid dal kale geed dibadda ka yimid laakiin la doonayo in la balaariyo waxtarkiisa isagoo cilmiyan la baaray oo jaamacaddu baaray sida wax inoo tarayo iyo sida loo beeriyaba cimiladeena ugu baxayo marka anigoo ka wakiila xukuumadda dhexe waxaan halkan u iimayna shirkaana furo dadka ka soo qayb galana u mahadnaqo aqoontana aynu kala hadhno barnaamijkeena halka ka sii wadno.
From now on I'm learning social media, but from now on my hashtag will be Somaliland is leading climate adaptation in Africa. I started yesterday, so that will be hashtag from now on. Somaliland is leading adaptation in climate adaptation in Horn of Africa. And Mooringaha aniga waxaan bilaabay. I want to tell you this project how it started. It started with two fathers. And Dr. Aisha's father, who is specialist in the trees and everything. In 2011, when I went in Canada and met her wonderful father, I told the problem we have in Somalia. The drought and famine, and Somaliland is well aware of that famine because it supported Somalia. I remember when they brought money and everyone came delegation from Somaliland to Somalia. And I told people are eating the trees. Walking, we know history of Baydhabo. We know 1993, how one day in Baydhabo almost 300 people died. Somaliland is much better positioned than Somalia and Horn of Africa. So he told me, if you're eating the leaves while you have a drought, let's plant a Moringa oleifera. So like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that tree? So it started with your father. And we here today in this institute because of my father. His photo is right there. Adan Mirawaqaf. He was the first student in this institute. So that's the reason we choose it. So all this project is from two fathers. So as a father, make sure you raise the right daughters. That will change the world. That's my advice to the fathers and fathers to be who's sitting here. So it's very important. You are taking a big role of shaping the future. I'm very passionate. I'll talk about the health. Dr. Aisha will do the science. This lecture maybe seems all scientific, but I'm glad we have the right people in this room. All you guys scientific, all you are doers. I told Dr. Aisha, we don't want to talkers, we want to doers. So we will have a small, nice group, but it will be all doers because that's what we want. The biggest problem in whole Africa and the world is people talk beautifully and they post and everything and nothing is done. And that is not me. It will take me 10 years, 15 years, I will do something. When I came to Somaliland and I went to Bur'a, I'm based in Bur'a, by the way, and I told them I'm going to build a hospital, everyone was looking at me, you lost your mind. Why not in Hargeisa, why not in this? And my goal is if I set something in my mind, I will do it. So after 4 years, I learned what this Bur'a means and talk there. I know them well now. With all the challenges, now my mind is set for Moringa to be every corner in Somaliland. And I'm so happy to have the right people, the right attitude, the right spirit. I was so happy. Me and Dr. Aisha were sitting yesterday, and we have never been 7 days most productive in our career. 7 days. we checked and moved to Somaliland. We spoke everyone, and everyone welcomed us. Everyone say, we are happy, we will be part of it. Mohammed took us every corner. Minister of Environment was ready. Every minister we knocked the door was like, welcome. And that's a big thing. And second thing, I'm very proud, and Dr. Aisha told me, Somaliland will be more sustainable than any other country. Why? Because we pay our tax. Every 5 minutes, the car was stopped, and it's like, "Anshuurti ma bixisay, ma bixinin, dib, anshuurta dib." So that's at least a good thing. We have our inside income sustainability, and the Moringa will be our also sustainability in our water purification, health, food security. So we don't want to be dependent. And the history we know, COVID ka markuu dhaca qof noo imaado male. Anaga le wada dhimanay wixii wadankeena haysanay loo noo socod. So baahi hadday dhacdo adduunka qof noo imaanay malaha. So waa inaan ka fikirnaa saa iskugu filnaan lahayn. Raali ahaada dadka af Soomaaliga caadiga fahmaynin. Hooyada waxay dhihi jirtay geed weyn sumad looma yeeli karo. I'm too old to change my accent now. So I will keep my southern accent, although my father is from north. So I hope you understand what I'm speaking. So let's move to health. Sorry.
No, it's good.
My father was a politician, so I have to do that. This is my political genes.
Yeah.
So in health, I'm so fascinated and excited, and I think I should be scientist than doctor. My original have to be. So Moringa wax walba u fiican yahay caafimaad ahaan. We know. We're thinking it's about diarrhea, hypertension, but no one knows it's malnutrition, anemia. That's what India uses. And we know we are one of the second highest maternal mortality, most of Horn of Africa. Sudan, I think third or fourth, and I had one, I was so fit, and we're getting better. With thanks to Adna Adan, I think so, the amazing work she did in Somaliland, training skilled midwives, and the government who was willing. Somaliland is getting better. But haddaa caafimaad rabin in adduunka u horumarno. Waa la ogyahay horumarka waddanka maxaa laga xisaabaa? Waxbarashada, caafimaadka, and infrastructure. Haddaan rabin inaan waddan noqono isku filan. Saddexdaas haddaana ku dadaalin oo cuntadeena aan ku filnayn oo hooyooyinkeena ee simple wax u dhimanayaan horumar ma gaari karno. Forget about waddan intaa meel la fadhiisato oo ku respect garayo. Waddan markaa meel la fadhiisato wuxuu ku malay inaad tuugayso oo lacag weydiisanayso. Laakiin markaa isku filan tahay oo maternal mortality rate-kaada u yaraaday oo ilmahaadi malnutrition ay lahayn oo cunto kugu filan aa family-kaada u haysatid, you are proud Somalilander to sit in a table and say, my country is sustained in health, maternal mortality we reduced. We used several methods. We also included Moringa. Iron-kooda high waa hooyada hadday dhasho uguma walwalaya inay dhiig bax u dhimato because she has enough hemoglobin, one of the highest number oo dilo. Dhakhaatiira qolka fadhiso iyo public health way garanayaan. But what I'm excited, most of it, is the water purification. I want to make sure watery diarrhea in our maqlin. So we're sitting here today, and I hope we're all going to pledge next 5 years there will not be a statistic. Cunug Somalilander out into Shuban. So that's the goal we're going to set up, all of us. And we're all going to commit, because that's the simplest.
From UNICEF here?
Yes, they should be here, UNICEF. Is UNICEF here? They just come? But the FAO is here. We invited UNICEF. Is here? Yeah, they just arrived. You arrived the right time. So on behalf of my country and my father's country, I pledge myself, and I hope you will pledge with me. With the Moringa Olivari, we're going to make sure next 5 years there is a less or maybe zero a child who's going to die for watery diarrhea. It's a shame in this year, in this time, our children die for watery diarrhea. It's really a shame. We could have enough water. We could have enough resources if we committed. Commitment is the key. Hadda maanta anaga qaban qof qabanay male. That's the slogan of my mother akbarte. Hadda adiga qaban ya qabanay. That's the passion she had. Like hadda maanta idinka qaban waa wadan dhalinyaro Soomaaliland. Waa wadan boqolkiiba 60 dhalinyaro. Dhalinyarada hadalkan badan oo socota. And I hope scientists and inteena waaweyn inaan dhalinyarada caawin karno inay wadankan hore u mariyaan malnutritionka ay ka dadaalaan, watery diarrhea ay ka dadaalaan. And the fascinating thing is burcan jooga almost waxaa haynaa over 300 cases oo diabetic qabo, oo severe diabetic, oo aan iska daaweyn karin, oo aan daawadii gadan karin, oo aanan annual samayn karin routine checks, oo poor. Can you imagine hal tree haddaan siina gurigooda ku beertaan ay combine u sameeyaan daawadooda iyo geedka, and we control their diabetic level of sugarka? That would be miracle. Miracle u ahaa lahay. Marka geedka lacag uguma fadhiyo qofki, laakiin ma gadan karo metformin. Bishii hal mar aan ku qabanaa organization or community volunteer caawiya la dhahaa jirto, amazing. So they recorded everyone of diabetic qabo waxana gadan karin. And I'm 100% sure every city of Somalia in laga hela qof aan awoodin inuu gato diabetes, then uu noo imaanay uu dhimanay kilihii ka dhimanay, dialysis fiican ma haysano, oo lugihii laga jarayo maanta oo dhan, labadiisi lugooda ku shaqaysan lahaa soo maskiin ah, because he was not controlled, his diabetes was not controlled. So fadlan ha isdhihina aniga aan nici jir political. This is what I learned my experience. Political daa maqal shaqo kuma lihiya dhihi jiray. Then I learned politics, it dictates my life. I cannot ignore. And the health dictates our life. We have to be healthier. We have to make sure our neighbors and our community are healthier. And that has to be desired for our government. Because if you don't have healthy society, you do not have enough income and sustainability. dadka hadday xanuunsan yihiin ee ba shaqayn karin oo dadka xoog laha economically soo gelin karin intee dhaqaale ka sugay? Where are you going to get? Ilmaheena diabetes ka qaba lama diagnose kare early dhintaan. We only diagnose diabetes type 2. Isn't it? Have you, any one of you seen cunug yar oo diabetes insulin la duraayo? Few of you. Few of you. Maybe few of have a good access to. But tulooyinka maya. Cunuga wuu suxay wuu dhintay ku leedahay. Have you been anywhere? They don't know a child insulin la siinayo. Okay, uncontrolled, lama ogeen insulin inuu qabay, wadaada loo wacay, waa uu umihii wuu gubgubay, wuu dhintay. The child is gone. And one child is very precious to this. You never know what that child. So we make sure, inshallah, Moringaha inaan ku daaweyno basic things. Now, whole world is shifting in traditional and healthy treatment. No one is doing anymore chemics. Waa laga cararaya. Healthy food, healthy, and prevention is the key. Moringaha role-ka weyn loogu ciyaara waa prevention. We cannot afford to treat our community. 250 ka register gareena burco fadhiyo, we don't know waxaan ku sameynaa. $2, $3 iska aruurina, but that's not sustainable. Haddaa daawadii u gaday oo isbitaalada ay caawiyaan, who's going to control his food? Where he going to get enough food oo cuno qofkaas diabetic qabo? So we have to prevent. Prevention is the key. Soomaaliya hadday rabto inay hore gaarto, inay xuriyad gaarto, we have to focus on health.
So that's call it Moringa borsiana. There is Moringa longituba, Moringa bregrina, Moringa respoliana, and lastly Moringa stenobatella. So the reason I have now here two boards, just to differentiate between the two, which is which. For example, this one is Moringa oleifera, It has a shorter pod. And this is Moringa stenobatella, Its characteristic is that, it has this twisted pod. It's twisted pod, and it has a longer pod, So I agree with Dr. Aisha that, Moringa oleifera has advantages over stenobatella. And matter of fact, we promote the propagation and the spread of Moringa oleifera. It's a pity that we don't have the former Minister of Environment here, Mrs. Shukri, because she was one of the promoters of this plant. I think it was in 2012, the time she started planting Moringa oleifera. She has in her farm around 4,000 plants of Moringa. I have in my farm around 1,000 plants. So that's where we source our Moringa leaves. where we crush it, we dry it, we crush it, and we package it.
Okay. Raise your hand if you know what Moringa oleifera is. Okay, everybody knows here what Moringa oleifera is. Wonderful. Ah, yes, we have, this one is Moringa stenopetala. Yes. That's stenopetala. Now, we're going to talk a lot about Moringa oleifera. Moringa stenopetala looks very similar to Moringa oleifera, but Moringa stenopetala is native of East Africa. There are 12, I think, 12 or maybe 13 varieties of Moringa oleifera. 12 of them are native to the African continent, and one of them, Moringa oleifera, is native to Pakistan and Indian area. But this tree does extremely well in East Africa, and we're going to talk a lot about this variety specifically, although Moringa stenopetala is a very good tree. But Moringa oleifera gives us some advantages ecologically, and that is very worthy of research and possible cultivation in a very organized manner. Now, everybody here knows about Moringa oleifera, but Dr. Deco and I have been traveling to IDP camps, we have been talking to rural communities, and what we have noticed is that everyone who is a scientist, a minister, an academic, everybody in that part of society knows Moringa oleifera, but when we talk to the people who are in the harshest conditions, they don't have it, and they don't really know it. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to change that dynamic. So we'll talk about Moringa oleifera from a One Health perspective, and then inshallah what we can do is come together, and the connections that you create with each other for research productivity are very important. So the first and foremost, this entire conversation we're having is about climate change and adaptation. And the fact is, we are past the point where climate change can be prevented. I think most of you know that the new president of the United States has withdrawn the United States from the Paris Agreement using an executive order. That means that the United States is no longer participating in climate change mitigation. That's the one of the top greenhouse gas emitters in the world. The fact is, international cooperation on climate change is declining very badly, even though we have a loss and damage fund. The fact is, the scientists agree globally that this is happening. We are crossing tipping points. We are beyond the point where you can just count on climate change being prevented. It's going to happen. It's going to define the next 30, 40, 50 more years of our lives. And so adaptation is the strategy moving forward. In this region, every area is going to have its own problems. You all know Los Angeles caught fire. That's a different kind of climate problem. In this region, we have to, one of the major concerns is drought and then extreme food security risks because of drought. So we know that climate change in this area is going to worsen those droughts. We've already seen that happen. And adaptation is essential for survival, for sustainability, and then also, I don't want this to be so negative, also there's an opportunity if you adapt, you can create prosperity under those conditions, but only if you're thinking ahead and being mindful of what can grow. And I think it's very important for me to stress that sustainability means you must have control over the resources, local ownership, sovereignty, and ownership over your solutions. Because right now, with the tensions between a lot of the big powers, the United States, the Chinese, and the Russians, once again, not only a decline in cooperation over climate change, but over a lot of things. The World Health Organization, for example, the United States just pulled out of the World Health Organization. That's a problem for the whole world. But if you are dependent on major international organizations for your solutions, or NGOs or anything, that's vulnerability. If the solution is your own solution and you have complete sovereignty over it, that's security. So dependency in this future world is not safe under climate change conditions. And that brings us to a wonderful opportunity, which is Moringa oleifera, which is one of the 13 varieties of Moringa, but it grows beautifully well in this area that Somalilanders have complete ownership over. And it is, I wish I could tell you that I knew 1,000% plants that grew like this, but it does have some very unique properties that can work within the ecosystem that exists here. And it is known globally as a climate adaptive crop. And I also note here that it's for IDPs and rural populations. We have found that so many people who have already have prosperity are enjoying Moringa oleifera, and that's perfectly fine. But it is especially beneficial for those populations that are already vulnerable to climate change. And we'll talk a little bit about the assets and how we can leverage those assets. So just to recap what Moringa oleifera is, welcome. So this of the 13 varieties is the one variety that is indigenous to the Indian subcontinent, so our area, my traditional area. And it has some different attributes than the stenopetala and other Moringa varieties. But it has a special type of baraka that is, I mentioned this, that everybody here knows Moringa, or many people have Moringa, but it is especially beneficial for poor people. It is known in our region of the world as a baraka, especially for the poor. That doesn't mean that the others can't enjoy it, but it is known globally to have a special benefit for those who have very little. It's known as the tree that can save you from starvation. And it is, has certain very, very valuable assets. First and foremost, I'd like to say that this tree loves hot and dry conditions. So if you're facing increasing drought, it grows under hot and dry conditions and asks for very little water. We've spoken to a farmer who here in Somaliland has been growing Moringa oleifera for 20 plus years, since 2002. And he has a very diverse farm. There's been no damage to any of his other crops. He has indicated it's worked really well, sustainably. And in the drought season, in the dry season, he says it requires 1 20-liter jug of water every month in order to keep it sustainable. And so it's sort of like, it's like the tree version of a camel. It asks for very little, and it produces extremely nutritious food. So there are several benefits. The seeds, I know many people in Somaliland like the seeds as a medicine, and we'll talk a little bit about the medical value. But there are two major areas that we think are underutilized, underused in Somaliland, and the first one is for food. So it is food producing. Both the leaves and the seed pods are extremely nutritious. They are rich in iron, protein, and essential vitamins. The leaves have more iron than spinach. The protein is almost equivalent to eating meat. You can cook it. You can eat the leaves raw. The seed pods, when they're green, you can peel them. I peeled them, chopped them up, and put them in dele bilash. Turned out very nice. And it can add an enormous amount of nutrition. Especially, as I said, the leaves and the seed pods can grow under dry conditions. So there's an excellent opportunity to integrate Moringa oleifera into the diet, especially among communities that have food insecurity. In addition to that, it's not only a food source for humans, but also for animals. If you have goats, in fact, you have to protect your Moringa oleifera tree when it's small, because the goats will eat it before you can eat it. But it's known to increase the milk productivity of your animals, so it's great for livestock as well. And then finally, there's one more asset. So food security is an opportunity. So working in agriculture, certainly integrating Moringa oleifera into the food security system is a simple and productive way to move forward. And then finally, there is an opportunity for water purification. And we've been having great conversations with people over the past week here in Somaliland about how to use Moringa oleifera as a low-tech flocculant for water purification. And I'll speak very briefly about that because it's an incredible opportunity that I think even water scientists here in Somaliland, very few of them have heard of this method, but it is actually scientifically tested.